Astro Boy, Omnibus Volume 1. Now, I haven't long ago finished recording a video on Pluto and talking about this extensively, but I really wanted to make a video just talking about this on its own because I haven't really read much Osamu Tezuka before. Astro Boy is pretty much the only series that I've read really, but I will be picking up some more, certainly. I read this online previously, mainly focusing on the story that I've talked extensively about in my Naoki Urasawa look at Pluto. So I'll link that in the description below if you need, a pointer as to where to find that video. But the greatest robot on Earth storyline, which appears in this book, is the inspiration for that, and one of the reasons why I picked this up. I read our story originally online, but I found this book for £4 online, and I was just like, oh, why not jump into it? There's always a fear when I buy volume ones of a series like this, and this is why I didn't buy them before, is because Tezuka's Astro Boy stories, I love some of them, but some of them are they really don't do anything for me whatsoever. It really is a kind of mixed bag, which is bound to be the case because of the scope of amount of years and stories and themes and everything he's trying to explore. The one thing that Tezuka does amazingly is he's never afraid to experiment with his characters and the setting. He's always pushing the boat out in terms of themes and what to do with the character and where to put them. Even some point, like many Astro Boy stories have like Astro Boy in them for like a page. It's like really focuses on something totally else, but it's sold here as an Astro Boy story. And you start reading, you're like, where's Astro Boy? And then he pops in at the end. But that's not to say that they are the bad ones, because sometimes they are the very good ones. I was hesitant to start buying these because I didn't want like shelves upon shelves of, I think 7 or 8 of these omnibus. I'll make a note on the screen to say exactly how many they are because I've forgotten right now. But I think there's 7. They're read in the Western style as well, right to left. So they fully kind of flipped and all that. But the stories in here, more than anything, is Astro Boy is this classic story that I'm sure many of you have heard of and may not have read. But the origins of Astro Boy instantly show you that storytelling of Tezuka is really different than your standard kids book, because that's what it is. It was designed to be, a kids manga that kids would pick up, talk about in the schoolyard and all that, and enjoy. But the themes and the places that it goes are really, really up there and highbrow. And that's one of the things that I will say more than anything about this, is that when you read this book, you may not like some of the writing, you may not like some of the kind of character development, and the jokes is full of dad jokes. Like there's a kid that comes up in one point and asks for something off one of the characters, and he says, "Police!" And then in the next panel, a policeman appears out of nowhere and goes, "You called?" And then that moves on. Proper dad jokes, and they come in left, right and centre. But again, they kind of their time, and they're not to the point where you were kind of like, oh, this is terrible. They so quick and fast, you kind of almost forgive them, but you only forgive them because of the strength of the concepts that are being explored. Like Astro Boy's origins, for example, which are outlined in here. Astro Boy starts out life as a robot that's created as a replacement to a boy that had died. Now, there was a Professor Tenma. His son got killed in an accident, and so he couldn't bear with the grief and loss of losing his son, so he created a robot replacement to look exactly like his son. But he realised early on in their relationship that Astro Boy isn't going to age, he isn't going to develop, he isn't going to change, or at least he perceived it as that way. And so he cast him away because he'll never be a replacement. And so he cast him to one side and got rid of him. And Astro Boy ended up in the circus and ended up in various places, and then more or less quite quickly early on, he ends up with a scientist who works for a big scientific company in Tokyo, Japan, and develops him as a person, as an artificial person, and treats him in that way as well. But then equally, he's got strength and power, and he's got guns that come out of his bum. I mean, that tells you all you need to know. And on one panel, you've got him shooting guns out of his bum. but then on another you're really exploring this mental high concept of the grief of a father pushing him to the lengths to create an artificial robot, but even that never really fulfilling him. And even in the opening couple of pages, it outlines the world of Astro Boy, saying why do humans create robots, why do humans make machines do human work, and how robots began getting advanced more and more and more, to the point where they started creating laws for robots, where they started actually creating, you know, people who would oversee robot relations. And then by the time that Astro Boy is created, robots actually have civil rights within this world that Tezuka has created. The other good thing as well is Tezuka himself pops in and actually breaks the fourth wall and talks to you and introduces a lot of his stories. And they blend in, they're not kind of an introduction, they're separate. They literally kind of blend into the story, and they're really well done, actually. I quite like them a lot. I think it's hard to get across, mainly, how impactful some of the concepts of the story is, but I'll talk about the kind of second story arc in a spoiler-free way as possible. But I'll just touch upon one or two things that absolutely blew me away about this second story arc, and about a lot of the story arcs that are contained within this book, really. The Hot Dog Core. Now, the Hot Dog Core is called that because, believe it or not, they're the rights of robots, and robots physically, fundamentally can't kill human beings. But then there's a bad guy in here that wants a powerful robot that is able to kill and do their bidding in a negative way. And so they couldn't build a normal robot, so they decided to start building cyborgs. But they couldn't really go out there building random cyborgs. So what they did is they kidnapped dogs and then used dogs' brains as the basis for these cyborg robots. And so essentially they've created this vastly strong and amazing kind of cyborg artificial life, with all the organics inside being a dog. The questions that come back time and time again is, as that cyborg is living their lives and going forward and following orders from this maniacal kind of scientist and the female protagonist or antagonist in this story, the dog's brain starts to kind of regress and starts to listen to sit and things like that. And yeah, you might think it's silly and all that, but the exploration of this story arc as what it is to be an organic life and what it is to be an artificial life, and how no matter how hard you try, you can't escape what you fundamentally are, is explored in this storyline. So they look at this cyborg and the fact that no matter how advanced, no matter how much they brainwash you, no matter how much they push it forward, all of these dogs keep coming back to what they originally wanted to do, be with their owners, you know, have comfort. And it's a really tragic story, and particularly kind of one of the teachers of Astro, his dog, Pedro, I think his name is, gets stolen, and the story follows him quite heavily, and Astro Boy then going against these corpses and trying to figure out for himself, okay, what are these things? They're not robots, but what are they made of? And when he makes the discovery that they're actually kind of part dog, it's astounding. I mean, even at one point, the discarded dog fur is kept in one place and the robot finds it and can't let it go, like uses it as a comfort blanket. And this is a kid's book. And that's what blew me away, is the level of exploring ideas and philosophical ideas and scientific ideas is on a different level, and his imagination is just pinging off in all different directions. I mean, the places this storyline goes to, it ends up on the moon, and he even comes up with the idea that the craters on the moon have literally been impacted by the craters, and because of the impact and the weight underneath, diamonds have been created, so this vast wealth has been created underneath. But then an ancient civilization exploited these diamonds and built stuff out of them, and it goes on and on and on and on. And the places it goes to, honestly, are mind-blowing. Just in the second story in this omnibus, the amount of concepts and ideas that are kind of presented are more than entire years and years worth of like Marvel and DC kind of books. But they're done in a way that you kind of haven't really seen before. It's always slightly off the norm, and it's always slightly more Tezuka in creation and form, I think. It's pointless me going into all the stories contained within this omnibus in detail. I would say to you to get online and to read some Astro Boy, read a couple of stories, but remember one thing is every Astro Boy story you read is going to be different from another Astro Boy story you read. They've all got a little bit of uniqueness in there, but some of them are a bit, you know, quick and easy and not really that interesting, but some of them, particularly out of this omnibus, I really loved kind of the Hot Dog Corps. The Planet People was great, the greatest robot on Earth. White Planet was an amazing story. There's a great magician story in here as well, where a robot magician is actually, you know, set up as a criminal and he didn't do it, and there's this alternative version of him and they battling it out with Astro Boy, and it's a great storyline because you're never quite sure where it twists and turns. If anything, even with some of the kind of off-kilter writing and all that, the art I love, but the art obviously might not be to everyone's taste, but in general it is well drawn. Some of the action scenes and some of the pacing scenes with Astro Boy are just beautiful, and some of the character development is absolutely stunning as well. But more often than not, the ideas, and I've got such an appreciation for people just pushing the boat out and trying and experimenting, and I think that's what I appreciate more with Astro Boy than anything else, is the fact that he's pushing the boat out and trying new and interesting ideas and ways of approaching things. The book itself is even smaller than a tankobon. It's a tiny, tiny book. I don't know why it's come at this level, but equally, it is small, but it is super easy to read in fairness. It kind of opens up wonderfully. It's a really well-made book. Paper is an old stock paper. It's totally and utterly in black and white. The text, for the most part, is quite easy to read, even though in some places it might be a bit smaller. Chocked, packed with tons of stories. I think even in this first one, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different stories, or nine different stories in this one. And I'm certainly going to pick up more of Tezuka's work, maybe not Astro Boy, because again, I'm going to have to look online and experiment to see where the character goes and see how these omnibuses are mapped. Because again, I didn't love every story, but there was enough here to certainly make me keep revisiting that world for definite on every level. And hopefully the dad jokes and that type of thing will get less and less going forward. Certainly the greatest robot on Earth, as I probably would have talked endlessly about in the Pluto video, is a standout story and is absolutely phenomenal. So certainly watch that video again. But that is all I got to say on Astro Boy, the Omnibus by Dark Horse. Thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you on the next one.